Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. It is the 14th lecture on report writing skills. Dear students, in the previous lectures we discussed different general qualities of the reports. Just to give you a short summary of all the lectures, 13 lectures. The general qualities that should be present in all the reports in the form of 7 C's. Then we discussed the 3 components of the reports: the introduction, the text and the conclusion, because these 3 basically are the parts of all types of reports, whether you write the formal reports or the informal reports, informational reports or analytical reports. Whatever type of reports you are writing, the basic 3 portions of the report are the same, that is the introduction, the text and the conclusion. We discussed that. Then we discussed the types of headings and the degrees of headings and the parallel format of the headings. After that, dear students, we moved on to the different types of informational reports and analytical reports. In that we discussed different personal activity reports. Further we discussed the periodic reports. Dear students, we also discussed different approaches to divide the framework of a report: 2 + 2 = 4 approach, the scientific method, the yardstick approach, and the reports divided on the basis of conclusions and recommendations. In today's lecture, dear students, we are going to discuss some additional parts of a report in addition to the introduction, text and the conclusion portion. But before that, you should be knowing the difference between the informal report and the formal report. Informal report normally is the word for a short report, a report less than 5 pages, 1, 2, 3 or 4 or 5 pages, not more than that. And a formal report is a long report which might be having 5 pages to 500 pages to 5,000 pages. This book in front of you is an example of a formal report, and it is having in it some 600 pages. Now, dear students, just to show you, dear student, in front of you on the screen, first, just to remind you again, we are going to discuss some additional parts of the report in addition to introduction, text and conclusion. Here on this side, this yellow mark is showing the generally appearing parts in both the formal and informal reports, whereas this mark with yellow and blue, it's showing the optional parts in the informal reports, whereas the important and present parts in the formal reports. Let us see which parts are optional for the informal report and which parts are important for the formal report. The first part over here, as you can see, dear students, is the cover. Let me increase the size a bit for you so that you can understand it well. Cover, and this is having blue and yellow mark. That means this is optional for the informal report, then, and should be present in the formal report. Here, title page, again mixed mark, yellow and blue. That means it is optional for the informal report, whereas it might be an important part of the formal report. Then next, as you can see, let me increase the size a bit for you. Here, the letter of transmittal. Now this is blue plus yellow, again optional for the informal report, whereas important for the formal report. Then table of contents again is optional for the informal report, whereas normally is present in the formal report. Let me again increase the size a bit for you. Then after that, list of figures, blue plus yellow color. That shows that it is optional for the informal report, and you can add it up to the formal report. Normally is added in the formal report, whereas the next portion, executive summary, blue plus yellow color. Now this is optional for the informal report and normally is present in the formal report. Next, dear students, as you can see, is the introduction. Let me increase the size a bit for you. Here, this is introduction, as you can see on the slides, introduction. Now there is no blue mark, it's totally a yellow mark that shows that it is normally present in both the formal reports as well as informal reports. Next is the body. Here again only the yellow color, the yellow mark that shows again normally it is present both in the formal reports as well as in the informal reports. Next, dear students, is the conclusions. Only the yellow mark that again shows that it is present both in the formal reports as well as in the informal reports. Then next, dear students, let me increase the size a little bit for you. Here, these are the recommendations. The recommendation portion over here is again marked only yellow. That means that recommendation portion is both for the formal reports as well as for the informal reports. Next, dear students, as you can see on the screen, appendix. It's blue plus yellow. That means it's optional for the informal report, whereas normally is present in the formal reports. After that, dear students, the notes and the bibliography. Blue plus yellow. That means optional for the informal reports and normally is present in the formal reports. We are discussing at the moment, dear students, what can be the additional parts of any report in addition to what? The introduction, text and conclusion portion. So this was a pictorial overview of the different additional parts of a report which are optional normally for the informal report and are present normally in the formal report. Here, have a look again. Here, cover, optional for informal, normally present in formal. Title page, optional for informal, normally present in formal. Letter of transmittal, optional for informal, normally present in the formal. Table of contents, optional for informal report, normally present in the formal. List of figures, optional for informal reports, normally present in the formal. Executive summary, optional for informal reports, normally present in the formal report. Then introduction, body and conclusion recommendations. These parts are normally present both in the formal reports as well as in the informal reports. Then appendix, notes and bibliography. These three are optional for the informal reports, whereas normally are present in the formal reports. So dear students, now we one by one would be moving to the description of these additional parts. Okay, dear students, as we have already discussed through the pictorial figure, through the pictorial description, the first portion that is optional for an informal report, the first part but normally is present in the formal report, is the cover. Now, as you can see on the screen, it is normally enclosed in vinyl or heavy paper binders. And why do you use the cover for a formal report? In order to protect the pages and in order to give the finished look to the document. Here, kindly have a look. This book, this is the cover. Binded, and it might be having the title over in the form of a cut out window or in the form of imprinted topic or an adhesive label. Here, dear students, this is an example of the cover. This is the cover of the formal report, and it is having imprinted title on it. And the purpose of this cover basically is to protect the pages or to give a finished look to the formal report. This one, this is the cover. Then dear students, after the cover, as we have already nominated, the next optional portion for the informal report and normally present portion in the formal report is the title page. And let me first show you on the slide how our title page looks like. This is the title page. This is the title page. Title page. To increase the size for you. Now let us see what should be added to the title page of a formal report, and this is an optional part, again I repeat, for an informal report. First, the title itself, the title of the report. Increasing participation in the Suncoast University campus recycling program. Dear students, on the title page, first thing that is given is the title. Remember one thing, normally the recommended distance from the upper margin is 2 inches. But if you have left 2 inches from this side, then remember one thing, the last thing that is shown on the title page is the date. Then it should be having 2 inches on this side as well. The distance should be the same as is the distance of the title from the upper margin. This distance should be the same as this distance. Then you can see one more thing. The title is in bold, capital letters. All the letters are capital. The recommendation is that on the title page, all the letters of the title should be capital and bold. Then, as you can see, then dear students, on the slide, that what is written in order to guide you on the side, arrange a title in all caps in inverted pyramid style. Pyramid, both pronunciations are correct. Use a larger font size and bold if desired. Then dear students, after leaving 10 blank lines, the next thing that should be mentioned on the title page is presented to. Who is the reader? Who is the receiver of this report? Presented to or submitted to. Here it is Carol Bryant, Recycling Director, Office of Associated Students, Suncoast University. The first letter is capital, rest are small, and it is highlighted. Then after leaving another 10 blank lines, dear students, your title page should be having your name, the name of the writer, prepared by, submitted by, prepared by or submitted by. As you can see, prepared by Alan Christopher, Business Senator, Office of Associated Students. Again, first letter of all the words capital, rest small. Then dear students, after leaving another 10 blank lines, your title page should be having the date, January 18, 2003. As you can see, there is one more direction in front of you on the screen. Omit the page number. When you are going to number your report, the formal report, the numbering should not be starting from the cover page or the title page. This page is not numbered. Have a look again, dear students. Here, this is the model formal report with MLA citation style, and over here in front of you is the title page. And the title page, first I repeat, should be having the title of the report all in capital letters and bold, 2 inches from the upper margin. Then 10 lines. After 10 lines from the title, you should be writing presented to, the name of the receiver, the name of the reader, presented to or submitted to. Along with, this is not only the name, dear students, kindly be a bit cautious. This is not only the name, this is the designation of the person as well with the name. Carol Bryant, Recycling Director, Office of Associated Students, Suncoast University. Then after another 10 lines prepared by Ellen Christopher, Business Senator, Office of Associated Students, along with the designation and the other important detail that you want to give. And after another 10 lines, the date. Another important point that we discussed while we were discussing the title page was that the distance of the title from the upper margin should be the same as the distance of the date from the lower margin. That is all, dear students, for the title page. Now let us move to the next document of the formal report. But first have a look on the slide. What is written on the slide? Title page begins with the name of the report, uppercase, no underscore, no quotation mark. Presented or submitted to, next point, then the name, title of the organization of the individual receiving the report, then prepared by or submitted by author's name plus necessary identification, date of submission, and all the items after the title page are a combination of the upper and the lower case letters. Next, dear students. Dear students, after the title page, we discussed two additional parts of a formal report. One, the cover, and next, the title page. Now we are moving to the letter or memo of transmittal. And if you remember that letter normally is used for external communication and memo is used for internal communication normally. What is external communication? When you communicate to the people outside the organization, you call it external communication. And normally you follow the letter style if you are communicating with people outside the organization. That means if you are going for external communication. And for the letter of transmittal, you will be following the memo style if it is for internal communication. That means if you are writing that memo or a transmittal for the people of your own organization, then the transmittal, letter of transmittal normally follows the direct plan. That means it mentions the recommendations, and it is a bit informal, less formal as compared to other parts of the report. You can use the pronouns like I and we, first person pronouns, which normally is not recommended in the other portions of the report. But in the letter of transmittal, yes, you can use the first person pronouns. And you can also use the contractions, by the way. What are contractions? You first should know it. Here, just to make you understand, I have already made a slide. Shortened form of two words. For example, in front of you, if you want to write I am, I separately, am, you want to write it in contraction, then it would be I apostrophe am. This is the contracted form of I am. So in the letter of transmittal, you can use the contractions as well. Then cannot, C-A-N-N-O-T, you can use its contracted form, C-A-N apostrophe T, as you can see on the slide. Then another example, in front of you, how is, H-O-W-I-S, you can write it H-O-W apostrophe S. Then madam, M-A-D-A-M, you can write M-A apostrophe A-M, contraction. Just to show you what is meant by contractions. Now, dear students, what should be added in the letter or memo of transmittal? First of all, dear students, it announces the topic of the report. What is the topic of the report? This is the first portion of the letter of transmittal. Then who authorized you to write this report should be normally the next portion of the letter or memo of transmittal. After that, it briefly describes the project, brief description of the entire theme of your report. Then A brief description of the report's findings, recommendations, and conclusions is also added up to the letter or memo of transmittal. The next is, yes, it is also a very important part of the letter of transmittal that you appreciate the assignment, that I am glad that I was given this assignment. Then it also appreciates the efforts of all those who helped you to write this report. And it also then in the next part would be giving some suggestions in short form how to follow up practically the recommendations given by your report. Then, dear students, in the end, as you can see on the screen, it offers assistance in answering the questions. Letter of transmittal would be welcoming the readers that if you are having any queries, then you are welcome to ask, put any questions, any number of questions, and I will gladly answer those questions regarding the report. Now let us have a look practically on the letter of or memo of transmittal. But before that, remember one thing, if you are just having one receiver of the report, then normally same letter of transmittal is one letter of transmittal or memo of transmittal is enough. But if your report is going to different readers, then you might have to go for different memos of transmittals for different reason, for different readers, depending on their requirement, depending on the demand of your reader, what he or she wants in that memo of transmittal from you. As you can see on the screen, if the report is going to different readers, a special transmittal letter or memo should be prepared for each, anticipating what each reader needs to know in using the report. Here, dear students, in front of you, this is a letter of transmittal. Memo of transmittal rather, because it's written in the memorandum format. Here. Let me increase the size for you and let us analyze this letter, this memo of transmittal. Here is it. Memorandum, first date January 18, 2003, then to Carol Bryant, Director Recycling Program, Office of Associated Students, from Alan Christopher, OAS Business, Senator. Then subject, the first thing that is mentioned, increasing participation in Suncoast University's recycling program. Dear students, we are analyzing the letter of transmittal, the memorandum of transmittal. Let us see what is written and where is it is written. Here is the report you requested December 10 about the status of Suncoast University's recycling program, along with the recommendations for increasing its use. Now the memo of transmittal, the first part, is announcing what this report was all about. What was the theme on which the reader demanded this report? The study included both primary and secondary research. The primary study focused on a survey of members of the Suncoast University campus community. Announces the topic, as you can see on the screen, announces the topic of the report and how it was authorized. Briefly describes the project. So, dear students, a brief description. The study included both primary and secondary research. The primary study focused on a survey of members of the Suncoast University campus community. Although the campus recycling program is progressing well, The information gathered shows that with some effort we should be able to increase participation and achieve our goal of setting an excellent example for both campus residents and local community. Recommendations for increasing campus participation in the program include educating potential users about the program and making recycling on the campus easy. Here, this portion is highlighting the report findings and recommendations. The next part of the memo of transmittal is summing up very briefly, highlighting very briefly the findings and the recommendations of the report. Then, dear students, as I discussed in the different parts of the memo of transmittal, next should be the acknowledgement part. Here, I am grateful to my business communication class for helping me develop a questionnaire for pilot testing it and for distributing it to the campus community. Now, I told you that in the memo of transmittal, you can go for these first person pronouns like I and we. It's a bit less formal as compared to the other parts of the report. So you can see the use of the personal first person pronouns pronoun I. I am grateful to my business communication class for helping me develop a questionnaire for pilot testing it and for distributing it to the campus community, acknowledging the help of others for writing this report. Their enthusiasm and support contributed greatly to the success of this OAS research project. Okay, please call Miss Bryant if I may provide additional information or answer questions. Here, kindly have a look on the upper portion of the transmittal. This transmittal is written to Carol Bryant. Carol Bryant. Now, written by Alan Christopher. Now Alan is saying, please call Miss Bryant, directly taking the name, showing warmth, zest, zeal. That you are welcome to call me if I may provide additional information or answer questions. Again, the first person pronoun I would be happy at your request to implement some of the recommendations in this report by developing promotional materials for our recycling campaign. Here, the writer of the report is very warmly volunteering for the help, that I am ready to help you in this regard further when you would be practically implementing my recommendations. So, dear students, have a look. We are discussing the additional parts of the reports in addition to the introduction, text and conclusion portion. First we discussed the cover, then we moved on to the title page, and this one was the memo of transmittal. Here, the memo of transmittal in front of you. Here, the memo of transmittal. Yes, dear students, let us move to the next part, additional part, optional for the informal report and normally present in the formal report, the table of contents. Dear students, when you talk of the table of contents, it normally gives you the headings that are present in the different parts of the report along with their page number, that which heading is present on which page number. When you are writing a short report, kindly be a bit cautious. Listen to me, that when you are writing an informal report, this portion is optional, and when you are writing the formal report, normally this table of contents is present, but it does not mean at all that for an informal report you cannot use it. You can. So when you are using the table of contents for an informal report, since the informal report is short, so the number of headings in an informal report will not be more than 10 or 15. So you can add.
Will not be said again.
क्यों, क्या हुआ?
वो ऑडियो में डिस्टॉर्शन.
अच्छा, ठीक है. For an informal report, the number of headings is not that much. So when you are trying to make the table of contents for an informal report, you can include all the headings in the table of contents. Whereas if you are making the table of contents for a formal report and you are having the number of the headings in the formal report is too much, then in that case you can pick up only the first and the second level headings for your table of contents. Then remember one thing, leaders, the spaced or unspaced dots. I think it's, let me check it for you. The spaced and the unspaced or the unspaced dots, how should I be showing them to you? Here, have a look. Kindly, if you can give me a close-up. These dots. Moving from the heading to the number, page number. These help basically the reader to tally the heading with the relevant page number. Which heading is on which page number, these spaced or unspaced dots will be helping the reader to create the link between this heading and the page number on which that heading is located. Here, dear students, in front of you on the screen, it's an example of the table of contents. Remember, I repeat again, we are discussing the additional portions of the report in addition to the introduction, text and conclusion. And this one is the table of contents. Table of contents. Here, let me increase the size a bit for you and let us see. Top margin is 1.5 to 2 inches. This heading table of contents should be either 1.5 inches away from the upper margin or 2 inches away from the upper margin. And I have already told you that if there is a text at this distance in the upper portion, the same distance should be there in the lower portion. Here. Table of contents, the first heading. Transmittal memorandum. You know, here you do not find the page number. This is simply being nominated by 2. I do not know how to, this is I think Roman, small Roman 2. Not being added up to the normal counting of the report beginning from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Executive summary. Then after that, introduction. Here is page number 1. Transmittal memorandum and executive summary was not numbered as one of the pages of the report. These are the additional parts. Introduction, page number 1. Let us see, are we having introduction on page number 1? Here is the introduction, dear students, in front of you of the report. Here, introduction, it is on page number 1. Introduction on page number 1. Let us move back to the table of contents. Then, Suncoast's recycling program. Again, it's on page number 1. Let us see, is it on page number 1? Suncoast's recycling program, page number 1. same page as that of the introduction. After introduction, the next heading is Suncoast's Recycling Program. It is again on page number 1. Then, dear students, what's next on the table of contents? Here, purpose of the study, page number 1. Scope of the study, page number 2. Sources and methods, page number 2. Let us now move to these parts and have a look whether they are on the same pages as they are being mentioned over here in the table of contents. Here, dear students, in front of you, yes, purpose of the study is on page number 1. Next, yes, the scope of the study and sources and the methods are on page number 2 as mentioned in the table of contents. Have a look again, page number 2 of the report. Next, dear students, the results of the study on page number 3, and recycling habits of respondents, participation in recycling on campus. Recycling habits of the respondents is mentioned on page number 3. If you look at the table of contents, then the results of the study should be on page number 3. Recycling habits of respondents should be on page number 3, and participation in recycling on campus should be on page number 4. Let us go to page number 3 and page number 4 of the report and have a look whether these things, these topics, these headings mentioned on table of contents really exist on page number 3 or 4 or not. 3 and 4 or not. Here, dear students, this is page number 3 of the report. Now, here, this is page number 3. As mentioned in the table of the contents, the recycling habits of the respondents should be on page number 3. And yes, we find that this heading, recycling habits of respondents, is on page number 3. Have a look again. Here, yes, no other heading, one heading only, recycling habits of respondents on page number 3, and there are 2 more headings mentioned in the table of contents on page number 4. Let us see what are those, which ones are those headings. Yes, dear students, the table of contents mentioned 2 more headings: participation in recycling on campus, and student awareness and use of bins. These 2 headings should be on page number 4 as per the directions given by on table of contents, and yes, these 2 headings are on page number 4. Have a look. Participation in recycling campus and student awareness and use of bins is on page number 4 as mentioned in the table of contents. These 2 headings, participation in the recycling on campus, and student awareness and use of bins, was mentioned on, was shown on page number 4 on the table of contents. And here, when we moved to page number 4, we did find these 2 headings on page number 4. Here, this is page number 4. Let us move back to the table of contents, what it says about next pages, page number 5 and onwards. Here, dear students, on page number 5 we should be having conclusions, and on page number 6 we should be having recommendations. Let us see, are we having them on these pages? Yes. Kindly, I need a close-up on this page. This is 6. The page number 5 is missing on my slides. Let me show you the page number 5 on camera. Conclusions as per the directions of the table of contents should be on page number 5. and here yes. Conclusion is on page number 5. Dear students, as per the directions of the table of the contents, we should be having recommendations on page number 6. Let us see whether we are having the recommendations on page number 6 or not. Yes, this is page number 6. Yes, dear students, these are the recommendations on page number 6. This is page number 6. And we are having the recommendations on page number 6 as per the directions of the table of contents. I think to write a table of content after this explanation is not a difficult job for you. Let us see what next the table of content is showing. On page number 7, we should be having the appendix. And on page number 9, we should be having the works cited. Let us see whether we are having these things on page number 7 and page number 9 or not, as per the recommendation or as per the directions of the table of contents. This, dear students, is page number 7. This is page number 7. Appendix. Page number 7. Yes. And then on page number 8 we are having again the appendix. Continued. The remaining portion of appendix. And after that, dear students, on page number 9 here we are having the works cited. The references, page number 9. Here, have a look again, the works cited. Page number 9. Moving back to the table of contents, dear students, here we end up with the table of contents. Next thing, list of figures. And other additional part that can be that is an optional part for an informal report, but normally is added in the formal report, is the list of the figures. Dear students, first you should know that the list of figures can be made the part of the table of contents if the space permits. You can give the list of the figures on the same page of table of contents if you are having enough space. If not, then you can be having a separate page for the list of figures. And what is this list, by the way? In a formal report, normally you are having many illustrative figures and tables and diagrams and histograms. And if you want to make a separate description of those figures, that which page or which diagram is existing on, then you can give a list of figures separately with the page numbers and the titles of the figures. Remember, dear students, there are some writers of the report who distinguish between the figures and the tables. If you are one of such writers, then yes, you can go for a separate list of figures for the figures and list of tables separately for the tables. Make a separate list for the tables and a separate list for the figures. Here, dear students, list of figures may appear on the same page as the table of contents, as you can see on the slide. For each figure include a title and the page number. If you distinguish between the figures and the tables, make separate lists for the tables and figures, as you can see on the slide. Let us move to the sample list of figures in order to clarify it to you. Okay, what is this list of figures? Here, dear students, in front of you, we are having the list of figures just lying under the table of contents. Here, this is the list of figures. Figure, the title and the page number. The title given to the figure, composition of survey sample and page number. Then respondents, second figure number 2 is given the title respondents who regularly recycle at home or work, and the page on which this figure is present is number 3. Material considered most important to recycle, this is figure number 3 and it's again on page number 3. Awareness and use of recycling bins on campus, this is the title given to figure number 4 and it is there on page number 4. Preference of placement of the recycling bins, this is the title given to figure number 5 and the page on which this figure is placed is page number 5. Let us see the first figure, composition of survey sample, on page number 2. Yes, dear students, here this is figure 1 as you can see on the slide, and the title given to this figure is composition of survey sample and the page number is 2 as mentioned in the table of figures. Correctly mentioned in the table. Let me move back to the list of figures. This is list of figures, not the table of figures, by the way. Here the next figure should be on page number 3 and the title of the figure is respondents who regularly recycle at home or work. Let us move to page number 3 and see whether we find this figure with this title on page number 3 or not. Here is page number 3. Let me increase the size for you. Yes, we are having a figure with the title respondents who regularly recycle at home or work, and this is the material, this is the percentage. Yes, and the page number is page number 3. Let's move back to the list of figures, dear students, that what next the list of figures is showing. Next is materials considered most important to recycle. Again, according to the list of figures, the figure with the title materials considered most important to recycle should be on page number 3. Now let us move to page number 3 and have a look whether we are having this figure with this title on page number 3 or not. Yes, dear students, we are having another figure on page number 3. This is page number 3 and we are having another figure with the title materials considered most important to recycle on page number 3. Yes, we are having this figure as per the information given by the list of figures. We are having this figure on page number 3. Let's move back to the list of figures. Here, dear students, the next figure in the list of figures is on page number 4 and the title is awareness and use of recycling bins on campus. Let's move to page number 4 and have a look whether we are having this figure with this title on page number 4 or not. Here is the page number 4 and dear students, yes, this is the figure number 4 on page number 4 and the title is the same as shown by the list of figures, awareness and use of recycling bins on the campus. So we are having this figure on page number 4 as per the detail given in the list of the figures correctly. Moving back again to the list of figures to see what next are we having in the list of the figures. Here, yes, we are having another figure on page number 5 as shown by the list of the figures with the title preference for placement of recycling bins. Now let us move to page number 5 and have a look whether we are having this figure with this title on page number 5 or not. This is page number 5, dear students. Here, dear students, as shown in the list of the figures, yes, we are having on page number 2 another figure which is having the title Preference for Placement of Recycling Bins. As you can see on the screen, have a close up on the book. Here we end up with the next part, optional part for the informal report and normally present part in the formal report, that was the table of contents and the list of figures. Up till now we discussed the cover, then we moved on to the title page. Here, dear students, we started with the cover, then we moved on to the title page. After that we moved on to the letter or memorandum of transmittal. Then we moved on, dear students, to the table of contents and discussed each of them in detail, and then the list of the figures. Now the next thing that we will be discussing is the executive summary. Now, dear students, just to repeat it again, executive summary is the optional portion for an informal report and normally is present when you are writing a formal report, and it is a longer one as well. So what is the purpose of giving the executive summary, by the way, in the beginning of a formal report? Now you are having some readers around you, by the way, who are not having enough time to read the entire document. For them, it is very much convenient if you write the executive summary, and they would be simply in a single look getting the idea what is there in the main document in the entire report. And normally, dear students, the writer of the report himself or herself is writing the executive summary of his or her report. But if the case is a bit different, sometimes another person is also asked to write the executive summary for an already published report by somebody else. The writer is somebody else sometimes, and the person writing the executive summary sometimes is somebody else. Normally, the writer himself writes the executive summary of his or her own report, as you can see on the slide. While you are writing the executive summary, dear students, what should you be doing? What are the various things that you should be keeping in mind while you are writing the executive summary for a formal report? Number one, as you can see on the screen, is summarize the key points. What is the purpose and the problem on which you are writing the report? Then what are the various findings, recommendations and conclusions, and what were the various research methods adopted to write this report? First step, summarize the key points. Then, dear students, while you are writing the executive summary of a report, whether you are yourself the writer of the report or you are writing the executive summary of the report of another person, what can you do? First, you are supposed to go for the thorough reading of the entire report. But there are some specific tips and hints which, if you adopt, will get a bit more clearer idea that what this report is all about. First of all, dear students, the first and the last sentence of all the paragraphs of the report, they should be given the special focus. Why am I saying this? Remember one thing, when you are reading, normally the first sentence or the last sentence of a paragraph is the summary sentence of the entire paragraph. Normally it sums up the entire idea of the whole paragraph. So it's very important. These two sentences must not be skipped when you are analyzing a report for writing an executive summary, as you can see on the screen. Then, dear students, there are some words that enumerate that first, next, second, finally. You should be paying special focus to these words because they are leading to something. They're giving you some special information, some background, some forthcoming thing, some currently happening thing. Then, the words which show some causation, the cause of something. While you are analyzing and reading a report, kindly pay special attention to these words as well. For example, therefore, the word like therefore, as a result. These are consequential words. Again, they are giving some important information which you cannot afford to miss while you are writing the executive summary of a report. Then, there are some words, dear students, which refer to something important. For example, basically, then principle, then this is critical. Now these words show, again, give you some very crucial information that is no doubt important to be looked at very closely, which you cannot afford to skip. I again repeat, when you are writing the executive summary for a formal report. Yes, there are some words. While you are doing what? You are trying to write the executive summary either of your own report or the report written by somebody else. And while you are reading that report, we are giving you some tips that which are the various things which you should be focusing on in order to get the exact idea of what that report is all about. The next type of words which you should be focusing on are the words that contrast different ideas. For example, however, consequently. While you are writing the executive summary, dear students, of formal report, then you should be using at least some important headings, and these important headings can be the purpose, the findings, and the conclusions at least in the outline. And the next step would be that you will be filling in that outline. You have made the outline in the form of the headings. Which headings? Purpose, findings, conclusions, and recommendations. And now it's time to fill in your outline. Normally some writers do one thing, that they cut important information from the relevant parts of the main report and paste it over there in the executive summary, and then they rephrase it. Either they condense it tactfully through tactful editing, or rephrase them, or write new sentences giving the same idea. Whatever approach you want, you can do it. Okay. And you should be beginning with the purpose, dear students. Normally the first sentence of the executive summary is, the purpose of this report is to do this, 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 and this, and this. But if you are an experienced writer, you can start it in a different way as well. You can give it a different phrasing style as well. Then, while you are writing, dear students, the executive summary, in the executive summary you should be following the same sequence of ideas as is mentioned in the report. Kindly do not alter it. The same order should be followed, because if you follow the same order, that will become a bit convenient for the reader who either simply wants to go for the executive summary or wants to go for the report, or wants to tally both. If he or she wants to tally both things, then again it must be having both the things, the executive summary and the main report must be having the same order of the ideas. Then, dear students, there is something which is not essential for the executive summary. In an executive summary, you should be skipping the non-essential details. What is a non-essential detail? One thing which is non-essential is which is not present in the main report at all, by the way, and you are a newcomer to introduce something entirely new in your executive summary which was never mentioned in the report. This is not recommended. Do not write anything new that is not present in the main report in the executive summary, and only pick up the main points from the report while you are writing the executive summary. And remember one thing, in the executive summary you should be using the minimal technical language. Make it easier for your reader to read. Dear students, the next is the length of the executive summary. What should be the length of an executive summary? It will be really a joke if you are having a report of 2 pages and for that report you are writing a summary of 10 pages. There must be a reasonable length ratio between the report, the length of the report and the length of the executive summary, and that is 1/10. If you are having a report of 10 pages, then the recommended length for the executive summary of that report is 1 page. If you are having a report of 100 pages, then the recommended length for the executive summary of that report is 10 pages. And dear students, if you are having a very long formal report, then you can add some graphical descriptions as well that can adequately highlight the main ideas of the report in the executive summary. Okay, dear students, today in the lecture we discussed the additional portions of a report in addition to the introduction, text and conclusion portion, which are optional for an informal report but are normally present in the formal report. We started with the first part, that is first page, that is the cover. After that we moved on to the title page, then the letter or memo of transmittal. Next, dear students, we discussed the table of contents, and then we moved on to the list of figures, and then we discussed the executive summary. We still are left with some portions to be discussed. Inshallah, in the next lecture we would be discussing the remaining portions of a report that are optional for an informal report and are normally present in the formal report, as we have nominated all of them in the beginning. And I am sure, inshallah, that you have benefited much from today's lecture. Wishing you best of luck in all the good things. Allah Hafiz.